Hello, my name is Leon Thomas, and I'm here to tell you about a new show. The name of the show is DEI After 5, and I have Sacha Thompson, the host of DEI After 5, right here with us right now. Sasha, how you doing?
Hi, Leon. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am just great. It's so good to see you again, and I'm really excited for you. You have your own show coming
Yay!
up. That that is great. That is great. And you and I met. I'm gonna say maybe 2 months or so ago. We liked each other. What's the term on LinkedIn? We followed each other, connected on LinkedIn, right, and shared some posts and commented on some things. And
Mhm.
now look, you guys have your own show. You have to be excited about that,
Who
huh?
would have thunk it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really exciting. I'm thrilled to do this. It's been one of the things on my bucket list for a while. So, just wanting to do something for practitioners, wanting to do something that talked about the things that we don't necessarily talk about on LinkedIn, right? We talk about DEI in a way of, oh, this is how it is in the corporate space, but we don't talk about the impact it has on those that are doing the work and some of the struggles and challenges that practitioners have.
And so when you say DEI after 5, that
Mhm.
says to me these are going to be things that you talk about that maybe we're not talking about, like you said, not on LinkedIn, but kind of like more private, in-depth conversations that you would have with your friends in the business. So is that kind of what you're going to be doing?
That's exactly it, right? Like it's okay. What happened today?
Uh huh.
Kind of thing. Um, this really is about those conversations that, it started with conversations that my friends and I were having, right? When I was in corporate space, and we would say, okay, it was one of those days where we're meeting at 5 o'clock, right? And so it was those types of conversations, or even conversations that I would have with people that were industry adjacent, and just see where some of the connections and intersections were, or conversations that I was just having with, just people around some of these topics, because DEI isn't just what happens at work. It's happening all around us, and we're seeing it in the news. It may not be called that, but that's a lot what it is, right? People wanting to feel valued, seen, heard, and included. And so that was the catalyst for all of this.
Now, prior to you, obviously having your own show, tell us about your background and what led you to this. So tell us about what you did in the past and how you got in the DEI that led you to what you're doing now and your show. Give us some insight in that.
Yeah, so I was a sociology major, right? So I always thought about ethnicity and diversity and all of those things, and worked in undergrad in the Office of Multicultural. It was called Multicultural Affairs at the time. Really just trying to figure out what all of this stuff was. So this was over 20 years ago. And since then, I've had some aspect of diversity and inclusion in my job. So be it creating programs to do outreach to underrepresented communities, or creating equitable programs. I ended up in marketing for a tech company, and took a couple of years off because I was like, okay, I want to learn marketing in tech. And so I just did that for 3 years, and ended up at a small startup where I was, I believe, the first Black female that they had hired, and quickly put my DEI hat back on. There were some situations that came up. And so from that, just really wanted to infuse it into my work, continue to infuse it into my work. Fast forward to about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. Well, actually, when the pandemic happened, I have a cousin who I call my aunt that has been in the space, right? So she's been in it for 40 plus years, and just really had some conversations with her about this work, and what's been happening in the industry over the last 40 plus years. And so what kind of led me to having this conversation really was a conversation I had with her, right? And things have changed, but they're still the same. And how do we continue to move this work forward? And so what I realized is the conversation wasn't really about, how are we defining diversity, equity, and inclusion. What practitioners are dealing with is a little bit different. It's how do we push the envelope, right, without pushing ourselves too much? How do we start to build community when we may be the only one in this particular role? How do we take care of self, right, when we're advocating not only for others, but for ourselves? And so it really became important to me as a practitioner before I started my own business to find that community. And I found that within that community, I was able to move forward and do things that I couldn't even imagine doing. And so I'm hoping with DEI After 5, we'll be able to create that community and start to give people tools and resources and support in a way that they may or may not have access to right now.
Yeah. So Sacha, you have shows scheduled in to start in January. So you have a lineup of shows in January and February. Tell me about some of those folks that'll be on your show in January and February.
So of course I have to have my Aunt Lolly on there. But I did that. I want her to be on here because I think it's important to have that historical perspective of the work. Hear from you and hear about kind of your journey in diversity, equity, and inclusion. It wasn't even called diversity, equity, and inclusion. Your journey in that and kind of where you see things shifting right now.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Sacha. I'm an old warrior in this space. When I first started, I guess diversity was really affirmative action. I started at that point. And there are a lot of diversity professionals who got a lot of pushback talking about diversity because people said, well, you're just talking about diversity because you don't want to deal with the real issues around affirmative action. So we were in that space. But I started teaching at Cornell University in the diversity management program. And the first classes were just about understanding what diversity is.
I also have Katrina Jones, who's a good friend of mine. I have Dr. Rufus Spann, who's a therapist in this space and talks about wellness in his work and all of that. So I'm looking forward to these conversations because I think that every single one of them has a unique experience and some nuggets that everyone can take out and walk away with feeling like, okay, yes, this is something I can implement at work tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that because everybody starts from someplace, right?
Yeah.
So I always say this. No, we're not born like woke, right? Like super woke. We all, and that's part of that expertise that we've cultivated is being in this from an academic, educational, but practical standpoint as well.
Mm-hmm.
Engaging in all of the learning, the knowledge, etc. And there's no end point to the journey. It's not that you get to a certain spot and you say, okay,
I'm done.
I'm C level, right? Like I got my doctorate, I'm good.
No.
You are always learning. And so,
or if we're just thinking about those that are living in their communities and they're talking about the, financial issues or other issues that are coming along, that impacts us as well. Because, as a vessel, as a mind, we can't block those things out per se. We take those things in and it's how we process them, how we either hold them or we release them back into our coaching sessions or clinical sessions and what we do. But beyond that.
Great. Yeah. We're excited to see this show. I know it's going to be well received by those that work in the DEI field, but I think it sounds like also that those that even don't, they're going to get something out of this show too.
Everyone will get something out of it for sure. Yeah.
And that's great. That's great. I hope your show's a big hit. And if someone wants to find more information about you, your website's right there at the bottom of the screen, right? The equityequationllc.com.
Yes.
That's where they can find information about you. Folks, starting in January, you want to make sure you check out DEI After 5 with Sacha Thompson. Sacha, thanks for spending time with us. I hope your show's a big hit. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon.